Have you ever read a story that's captivated your imagination? That's drawn you into it to where you and the characters become one? To where you can feel their pain and their struggles? Elmer Kelton writes books like that. In this speech, I will discuss with you why Elmer Kelton is one to admire. Through his life experiences, his contributions to history, and his awards. Elmer Kelton grew up on the McElroy Ranch. His father, Buck Kelton, was a ranch manager there. He grew up working cows, riding horses, and eating off of chuck wagons. His experience working on a ranch has helped him write these books. They helped every aspect. Mike Shea did an interview with him. He said, "How has the cowboy you witnessed influenced the cowboy you write about?" Elmer said, "When the story calls for it, I can describe the work accurately because I have done it, or at least tried to." Elmer Kelton's experiences after he graduated high school was the most influential. After he graduated from high school, Buck Kelton owns or leads 20 acres or 20 square miles of land. He asked Elmer if he could work it. Elmer said, "Sure." So in the morning before sunlight, he'd get up and he'd make coffee and biscuits. He'd go saddle his horse and he'd spend all day on that ranch. He'd work from sun up to sundown. If there was fence that needed to be fixed, he'd go get the wagon and he'd go fix the fence. Or if the windmill needed to be, he'd go over to the McElroy Ranch, he'd get the windmill guy, and he'd go fix the windmill. Elmer's experience helped him write every one of these books. But his contribution to people is the best. Every time Elmer Kelton wrote one of these books, he described what a ranch life and what cowboying was all about. Cowboying is a way of life. And Elmer described it to a T. Each time that he wrote one of them books, he showed people what it's like to really know ranch life and the struggles. His westerns are not just regular westerns. They're more than that. Every time I go saddle up my horse and I take it out, I come back to these books. I think about Huey Calloway, Rusty Shannon, and Jeff Lane, and Charlie Flagg, because he sets a time period where it was true life. In The Day the Cowboys Quit, it is one of his best books. It's a contribution to Texas history. After I read this book, I emailed Elmer Kelton and I said, "Was there a day when the Cowboys really struck?" He said, "Yes, there was." He said, in 1883, a lot of the cowhands were able to run their cattle with the ranch that they worked for. He said, when all the ranch owners got tired of this, they were going to put a stop to it. So the cowboys got together and they striked. Every time Elmer Kelton writes a book, it's a fictional book around a historical point. His books are Texas history frozen in time for others to read from here for 40 years from now. Elmer's awards also helped him influence other people. He influenced me. He influenced other writers. One writer said that he was having trouble writing a book, and his dad knew Elmer, and he said, "Why don't you go talk to Elmer?" So when he went and talked to Elmer Kelton, he said, "Elmer, I'm having trouble." And Elmer said, "Well," he said, "just write what you know." He said that was the best influence on him. Elmer's influenced me too, because it's true cowboy life. Every time I read that book, it takes me back to a better time. In closing, it wasn't about 3 weeks ago I emailed Elmer and I said, I'm wanting to do a speech about you, and I said, can you give me some stuff about your life and some just stuff to kind of help me out? And his daughter emailed me back and said, Elmer died August 22nd of pneumonia. And it kind of hurt me a little bit, because I knew Texas has lost the best writer of all times. A passage in one of his books kind of describes what I'm talking about. Many people over the years have asked me if I based Charlie Flagg on their fathers. My mother was convinced that I wrote it about my father. The truth is, I did in part. I wrote it about him and about many, many others I knew. People who still retain the old frontier heritage of fighting their own fight, testing one strategy and when it failed, trying another. But above all, simply enduring and enduring. They are not the traditional Western fictional heroes, standing up to a villain for one splendid moment of glory. They are the quiet but determined men and women who stand their ground year after year in a fight they can never finally win. Against unforgiving enemy they know will return to challenge them again and again so long as they live. They are the true heroes. I agree with Elmer Kelton. They are the true heroes. But to me, Elmer Kelton himself is a true hero, because he froze history in time for others to read. Thank you.